And Hester is going to run it out past the 40 into Giants territory. He is going to go all the way. Touchdown, Chicago.
Trying to find somebody open and throws an interception. And it's Charles Woodson's 55th of his career.
Dives for the touchdown, San Francisco.
I want to play desperately, and I'm going to try to drive everyone nuts till they give me a shot.
Favre threw an almost impossible 336 career interceptions.
See that?
Yeah. We have here the Brett Favre interceptions calendar.
It's the lovable kicking bear doll. And guess what? It comes with its own goalpost. Isn't that neat?
Double doink.
He's Poke the Bear, Roast the Niner. I'm Urza Master. Joining me as always, Urza Master. Wait a minute. Lord Uther and Gold Rush. Gentlemen, welcome back to week 12 of our NFL season here in 2024. We're winding down the year, winding down, in a way, the season. We are on one of the largest bye weeks, I think, of the year, with 6 teams out, and we're looking at some pretty good marquee matchups today. I suppose it's time to talk Niners-Packers today, but before we get to that, let's jump right in with Bears news with Lord Uther as they face off against the Vikings today at noon. Lord Uther, what's going on in the Windy City, my friend?
Pretty standard, really. I mean, fire flues, mistakes made.
It's trending.
He's defending his decision to not try and get closer. Cairo Santos was trying to defend where the ball was being placed on the right hash, on the left hash, where should it have gone. It's just your, excuse after excuse after excuse. Did the Bears play better? Yes. Did the Packers not play as well as they could have? Yes. So I think it was a combination of both of those things. I also think it's the idea that there was a fresh face calling all the plays. I think there's a typical surge, right? I don't care what sport it is. When you make a coaching change, there's always a surge. I mean, even when Magic Johnson took over coaching the Lakers for like a 12 or 15 game span, he ripped off 3 wins in a row, and they thought he was the greatest, coach since Pat Riley, and then that floundered. So I just think that's something that occurs when you make a change like that. They obviously have the Vikings this week. I think the Bears are a 3.5 favorite, it looks like. No. Yes. Nope, sorry. Vikings are a 3.5 favorite. Bears are at home. I'm taking the Vikings in this one. There's a lot of people that think the Bears are going to pull this one out. I think you've had that little bit of a surge, and that's going to wind up going away. I'll go, but I'm going to go 28-21. It's going to be a little bit closer. The only reason I say that is I think they are letting Caleb Williams do a little more of the things that he's used to doing, which is, this is my understanding, too, from last week. Just a quick thing, and I'll hand it off to you guys. Get it? Handoff? Hello. They're calling the plays for Caleb, and they're giving him a little time. They're not letting him really audible out of anything, and they're giving him that option to run. They're giving him that option to use his legs. Sounds like Justin Fields at some point. But anyway, but again, I still think Caleb Williams has those intangibles. I do think the players believe in him. I think a lot of the players, too, it was almost, if you listen to a lot of clips this week, it's like it was a weight off their chest that Waldron left. Look, I said this last week. I'm going to say it again. Players want to be coached. They think they know better. They're going to act like they know better. They're going to try and do things that go against the coach. They need to be coached. That's just how it is. So there are times you can give in to a player. There are times you have to say no or tell them they're not working hard enough or call them out. They want that. I don't care who it is. That was one of the great things about Phil Jackson. He had the greatest player ever. And this is why no other coach won before with Jordan, in my opinion. And just like why when Jackson went to the Lakers, they won. Because Phil Jackson would call them out. Phil Jackson kicked Michael Jordan out of practice. Tell me a coach who kicks Michael Jordan out of practice. He would purposely put Michael Jordan in tough situations. Jordan's team would be up in scrimmages. and he'd switch Jordan to the other team, and Jordan would get super mad that would happen because he went from being up by 10 to being down by 10. But that was Phil Jackson's way of putting Jordan in uncomfortable positions to be better, and Jordan knew and Jordan knew that Jackson would call him out. You got to coach. That's just how it is, and that's what players need. So with all that being said, I do think they're reacting to the new offensive coordinator a little bit better. This does seem like a guy who's not going to bend or break, and we'll see if that happens. Who they get as a coach next year, I don't know. And I guess I'm not even. You got to see how the season ends out, but I do think Flus is gone at the end of this year. And one last piece. Remember me talking about Dion going to coach somewhere, wherever his son goes. There's some discussions of him going to the Giants or going to Dallas. We shall. Though Dion said this week, I'm staying in Colorado. We'll see what happens there. Anyway, I hand it off to you. Hello, handoff again.
I'm not buying it. Dion's not staying in Colorado.
I agree. He's not staying in Colorado. Jerry Jones is going to give him a stupid amount of money to come coach that team. They're going to trade Dak Prescott. That's how they're going to wind up getting the pick. He's going to get out of that contract. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, they had a humbling loss to an unranked Kansas team yesterday. Colorado 16th have an outside chance of being in that 12-team playoff, and that's pretty much now probably up in smoke. So his bravado and brashness of my kickstand is down, I think, probably evaporated. It wasn't just that they lost on some last-minute thing there. Apparently, they were pretty outplayed by a clearly inferior squad. So that should tell you something there. It's feast week for all of our NFL fans and so forth, which means we get plenty of football on Thursday. We even get a Black Friday game this week. That's exciting. In addition to the usual NFL action. But before we dive into the main course, the Bears losing to the Packers and the way that they lost reminded me of an earlier Bears loss this season against the Washington Commanders. And so I ask, not just to pick on Lord Uther here, but I ask my fellow gridiron greats, is it more frustrating when you're watching a game and you just aren't there from the jump? Like when the 49ers played the Eagles in the championship and lost their quarterback within 3 plays, and it was just clear that there wasn't going to be their day, and that just the more the opposition ran and passed and tackled, that it was going to be a blowout? Or is it even more painful when you get the Hail Mary that somehow falls into the receiver's hands, or the blocked field goal that should be a sure thing to ice a victory? Like, which one hurts more? Like when your team doesn't just show up and you're kind of just in a losing game the whole way, or that last second reversal of fortune where you've basically spent the whole game thinking, hey, we got this, we're going to win, we're going to pull this out? Which one hurts more?
Here's what hurts more. Knowing in both those games that was going to happen. Because I'm sorry, but that's Bears football, and that's been this season, and that's been the track record with these coaches that we've had coaching the team. No, discipline's not there. Recognizing game situations isn't there, and the culture and the overall feeling isn't there. And that's why you need, again, a coach who's going to come in and truly change the culture of that team. But I don't think that can be changed unless you sell the team. It needs to be completely fresh, in my opinion, from top down. And it's going to depend on who buys the team, who they're going to make as a GM. I just think there's a lot of pieces that go into that. But I'm sorry. I knew those things were going to happen. I knew they were going to lose that game. So one way or another, they were going to lose to the Packers. And the Packers didn't play well. They just didn't.
We played like garbage. We should have lost that game. And matter of fact, we basically did. It was a miracle we blocked that kick. And it was a clean block. I know there was some controversy around that, but it was pretty clear that it was just a terrible misfortune for the Bears. But yeah, they really had that game in hand most of that game and won up until that point. But I do think it's a lot easier to absorb a loss when you are losing the whole game. Whether you lose your quarterback 3 plays into the season, like with Aaron Rodgers, or with a broken foot against Dallas those years ago. Um, it always sucks losing, but I feel like those games are just easier to handle as a fan, because you never get your hopes up too high. But the heartbreak of those like freak plays, though, I think is a little easier than what the Packers got under Mike McCarthy in the NFL championship game, or the NFC championship games, especially against Seattle, with 7 minutes to go, basically just resting on our laurels, running it 3 times and punting and hoping our defense will hold them. And then the last 7 minutes of the game having it completely reversed on you and Seattle walking away with the win. Or San Francisco coming away with the win, or whatever other team beat us in like that 5-year stretch where we were in the championship game every year and got beat. It was the same, the song remained the same, is we would get up by a score, and it was always one. It was never like we were up 3 scores. It was just like, oh, we're up by a score, we're just going to play conservative and try and run out the clock halfway through the first quarter. Like, it happened so much that I remember watching that Seattle game saying, we just lost this game. And everybody in the room was like, what are you talking about? We're winning by 10 points. I'm like, nope. They're starting to run conservative plays, 3-and-out, and they're going to hope the defense can just hang on, because that's Mike McCarthy's way. And that's still, by the way he coaches. If you watch him in Dallas, they get up by a score, and they start doing goofy shit on the field. And don't get me wrong, like Mike McCarthy, when he first came onto the scene and we won that Super Bowl in Green Bay, he was a good coach. He had a novel approach. He does lean conservatively on the offense, but he's never been able to adjust in games. He's never been able to adapt to player circumstances. And you see it play out on his face. Like, Dak Prescott makes a boneheaded, as Dak is wont to do, a boneheaded mistake, and it's just like, what was Dak thinking? And you look at McCarthy, and he's going, well, what the hell do I do now? We were up by a score, and I always used to say his coaching philosophy is either they beat us or we lose. So, yeah, it sucks. One thing I'll say about the Bears, though, is I would love to see the McCaskey sell the team. Don't get me wrong. I think that would be a good thing. But I don't know that that's the only way to solve all their problems. I would have believed that until Dan Campbell came into Detroit and in just a couple short years managed to completely flip the script in Detroit. The way the Lions are playing this year and last year is ridiculous. I mean, utterly so. And all they did was swap a quarterback and maintain their vets. How on earth they've managed to go from a 4-12 team to 9-1 this year in just 4 years, I think. It's mind-boggling. And they really did not move a whole lot of pieces around. They got a running back from Chicago. I think they picked up 1 or 2 defensive guys, and then they got Goff and traded out Matt Stafford, who, by the way, Matt Stafford, great quarterback. Played some amazing football in Detroit for the years he was there. Had Megatron for a while. Like, they weren't a terrible team. They just never quite had all the pieces there. And I go back to the head coach. And you look at the head coaches they had, and similar to Chicago, I think it's something where, like Lord Uther said, you have to have the commanding respect to that locker room. And it has to be through win or lose. And there is no coach, I think, in the NFL who's so hard on his sleeve about, this is my mistake. It starts with me. And also, like, we got to bite them at the ankles. Like, that's kind of the thing that I look at Dan Campbell and I think that's the way, like, I think we all coach from the couch sometimes. We get a little worked up or we get overly emotional, and he's a player, so they know he's played the game. He's a student of the field. He's also a fan. At the end of the day, he's a fan of what he's doing, and I think he gets that the team needs the troll a little bit. They need somebody to come out there and be weirdly, you know, up in everybody's face about how they're gonna beat the Packers or beat the Bears or beat this team or that team, no matter how good or bad they are that year. His passion does not change, and to be honest, I think you start to see it translate, and that's why this year and last year they're so successful. Is that the players have bought into that energy. You know, win or lose, Dan Campbell is right there back at it, working his butt off every single week, regular season, postseason, off season. Like, I got to put some respect on that team because they were in the toilet for forever. And until Dan Campbell stepped into office there and said, no, we're going to do this my way, unapologetically. And we talk about somebody who does not care about punishing his stars. He didn't have any stars. Like, Goff is essentially a washed up veteran quarterback. He's playing amazing football because Dan Campbell doesn't give a shit who you are. He doesn't play those games. And if you look at that roster, there's no superstar on that team. Amon-Ra St. Brown, maybe. But it's just Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, everybody else on the team they're good players, don't get me wrong. You know, they've got names. But there's no Michael Jordans, you know, there's no Brett Favre, there's no, you know, Tony Dorsetts or anything like that. You know, they've got just a very solid A- squad of players. You know, I don't know if you could argue that any of them are even future Hall of Famers, all things considered. They're workmanlike. That's something that's really missing in the NFL. I'm not saying other teams don't play hard. They absolutely do. But there are so many teams where you've got a Myles Garrett or you've got a Russell Wilson to go to our Thursday night game, which was a bananas game. I love snow games, by the way. But you get those teams where they have a couple of big marquee names. I look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs under Andy Reid have made magic with that. Andy Reid just, I think, is good at managing that situation. But, you know, there are a lot of other teams like the Bucs with Tom Brady. It was Tom Brady and his 4 friends, and then the rest of the team, you know, and you get maybe 1 year of success out of that, maybe, but beyond that, you're grasping at straws to duplicate that kind of that kind of success level, without having undue stress on the rest of the team, who are, frankly, most teams are your average C grade type players. You know, they're not going to be in the Hall of Fame. You know, a couple years out of the league, nobody's going to remember their name, and it's just the reality of football. So, that being said, looking forward to today's matchup at 3:25 Central. Gold Rush, it's your 49ers against my Green Bay Packers, and I say my because I am an owner. And I'm really looking forward to this game. I will say I like to see teams at full strength. So I was bummed to see the injury report for the Niners this week. Brock Purdy out. I think is McCaffrey out again, or
No, Bosa.
Bosa's out. That's right. It was one of the big stars.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not going to say it doesn't give us a nice advantage. It doesn't give us a huge advantage, but it is an advantage. But I like to play a team at full strength, especially this late in the season. Look, if you're going to take an L and you're going to get a gut check, now's the time. Late November, so you can start December off and win out. I hate to say it, though, for the Packers, I think a win-out situation is what you have to have if you want to try and get number 2 in the division or potentially still usurp it from the Lions. But a lot has to go in your favor. Fortunately, we've got a lot of matchups left in division. But this is definitely a must-win game for us. I think it's a must-win game for the 49ers, too.
It absolutely is. The disappointing division loss to Seattle last week can be arm in arm with the disappointing division losses to Arizona and the Rams. In every case this season, the Niners have taken a lead into the fourth quarter at some fashion. And last week it was a lead. It might have been 4 points with about 4 minutes and change. Get a couple of first downs, force Seattle to use a timeout or two. That's all you have to do. And they didn't do it. And Seattle, Geno Smith did his best Patrick Mahomes and used his legs on that final key touchdown drive, converted a 3rd and 21, I believe, with his legs. They just lost sight of him, and he got the first down, and then into the end zone with 8 seconds to go. I mean, it just, again, Bosa at that point had checked out of the game. There's no excuses, but you had lost that edge rusher who had been frustrating Geno Smith for a good portion of the game. That's kind of why I brought up which one hurts more, because there wasn't some last second craziness like a Hail Mary or a blocked field goal. They just, in the last 2-3 minutes of the game, they just didn't make those plays. And so a game that you kind of thought you were going to win 17-13, which again, that's not going to put you in Canton, but it's going to be a division win and put you at 6-4 and on, relatively solid footing, turns into a loss 20-17 because you didn't make those plays, at the very end. And now you're basically it's a 4-way tie or, thereabouts in the division, but you don't hold any cards because you've already, you've dropped one game to every division foe. So you're going to finish at 500, even if you beat the Rams again and beat Arizona. You'll just be, 3-3 in the division. The team I've been rooting for all these years, the 49ers, and the team that's currently on the field that will take the Packers today at 3:25 Central, it's kind of like looking through bifocals, right? There's the team that I believe that they are capable of being and have shown that they are capable of being in seasons past and even in some flashes this season, versus, again, the team that didn't make those plays with 2 minutes to go in a division game. Green Bay's motivated. We all know the last time these two teams met that Green Bay was playing strong, aggressive football, and the Niners were fortunate to make some plays in the second half of that game and, move on in the tournament there. So it's clear that the Packers have that on their mind. I think we've talked about revenge games before on Cut the Cheese and Poking Bears and Roasting Niners. You can certainly check that out on our archives, everybody. And revenge games can go both ways because you can slay the dragon and emerge victorious, or you can let too much of that force you to I'm going to jump this route and try and get the pick and then miss it. And that's when George Kittle or Deebo Samuel, gets behind you and gets a 26-yard catch, which, leads to better things down the line. So you can't let that be the sole focus and motivation. At the end of the day, your job's to find the W, whether it's by a blocked field goal or a comfortable 2 or 3 score lead. So, I think Green Bay, if there's any burden on them today facing a depleted Niners squad, it's just to keep things in perspective. Any miscues early, a muffed punt, a 3-and-out, that deflates the crowd, you just have to put that in perspective and just realize you're going to be in for a 4-quarter game. I don't think the Niners are going to show up, even with Brandon Allen under center and a rotating cast of characters on the D-line and so forth. You're still playing for pride. You're still a professional. You still have postseason aspirations. Now you have less and less of your own fortune to be able to control. You're going to have to rely on other teams and other scenarios in order to demonstrate it. You're not going to be in a position of strength like the Detroit Lions and these other top NFC teams, the Eagles and so forth. If you want to go and ultimately get a championship, you've put yourself in a situation now where you're going to have to go play in Detroit in January or Philadelphia outside at the Link in 14-degree weather or so forth, or Green Bay, Lambeau Field. So, I mean, that's what's in front of you. If that's still what motivates you, if that's still what you want to desire, then by all means. Is it an impossible mission? Absolutely not. But you can't play like you did last week, and you can't really play like you've done all season. Yes, the 49ers this year have had an inordinate amount of key players injured, or in the case of Brandon Ayuk, off for the season. But there are no excuses. There is still talented people deep on both sides of the ball, and it's those guys that have to make plays. Juwan Jennings last week against the Seahawks, he went off, again, just like he did in the Super Bowl. Every time they needed a big third down, every time, they needed the touchdown, it was Juwan Jennings instead of, obviously, the absent Brandon Ayuk. He was pulling it in. Kittle was out last week. He didn't play. Deebo Samuel was kind of a no-show in terms of the offense. They never really got him going. And the rookie, Ricky Pearsall, whom they, are expecting great things of, he was a no-show. And you can't no-show in the NFL. I mean, I don't care who you are. You have to go out there and get your catches, get your rushing yards. Christian McCaffrey said after the game, I could have played a lot better. So you like the accountability piece of it. You like that they realize it, but to Lord Uther's point, when does that just become excuses recycled week after week after week? It's like you've got to do it, right? Actions speak louder than words. And so, yeah, am I the fan rooting for the Niners to get that W today? Absolutely, I am. Is it going to be more challenging because of the missing personnel? You bet. Do I think that they're capable of doing it? Sure. And I don't care if it's a blocked field goal or if it's a freak, a pass interference call that sets us up on the 1 yard line, just to get that chip shot field goal at the end. I mean, I don't really care how they do it. I'm not looking for style points, but what can be disheartening is just when you, the couch coach, you feel like you've got, hey, why is Kyle Shanahan calling that? Why are we calling on 2nd and 1 and McCaffrey loses 4 yards because they know it's going to be a run up the middle? Why is that even being discussed? Why are we not doing, something fresh and, whatever? So yeah, my pick today, it's strictly from a fan. I mean, on the field, Green Bay has the clear advantages. It's a November game at home. They seem to be relatively healthy. They've got motivation. All the headlines say Green Bay should be a force, but this is football, like we said, and weird things happen, and I just hope that the 49ers come out and play 49er football, and Green Bay will play their style and brand of football if it's successful for them. And it's just going to come down to, again, who makes that play? Who makes that stop on 3rd and 4? And then, instead of going for it on 4th down, they force the other team to, punt, and then, things happen. So I'm going to go as a fan, a close one. I'll say Niners with a backup quarterback on the road, maybe 19 points for them. But that means the defense has to play phenomenal because Green Bay is easily good for 3 scores. And probably more if they get some good kicking special teams. Even if they're just racking up field goals, those points can add up quickly. So, I'm hoping for 19-16, but it's probably not going to be in that neighborhood there. So, but that's me, the fan, talking. Realistically, I think Green Bay is, you can check off the cheeseheads boxes for a lot of pregame advantage here.
I have to agree. I think Green Bay has the advantage, but again, and I've said this a few times this year, it's going to be close because we got to play damn near perfect football, and we have yet to play damn near perfect football. I do think this is the week that we come out of the shell a little bit and have a good showing at home. I think we're getting some unfair advantage with injury, which again, it's part of the game. I don't think it's taking advantage in any way. I just, I always feel a little bit crappy about being like, oh, we beat the tar out of them. I was like, well, yeah, but they had a backup quarterback. They're missing their best defensive guy. Yeah, it's still football. It's still hard. They're still professionals. I do think Green Bay is going to get into the 30s today. I think it's going to be 31-23. I think the defense has a good game today. I think special teams has a good game today. And I think the offense clicks. For whatever reason, I think Christian Watson last week was the only reason we won that game. And he's otherwise been absent all year. I'm still all for trading him, to be honest. I don't dislike the guy. I just don't think he's done at all what we wanted him to do yet. And until he really picks up the plow, I'm not sold on him. But I think we have a lot of other really good receivers. I think Tucker Kraft has a big game today. He didn't get involved last week. This week's going to be his week. I think it's going to be the George Kittle Tucker Kraft game, actually. Those two players are probably going to have big games. And I think they're both going to be very successful in moving the ball. Scoring, not sure. I think both sides are going to score okay in the first half, and it's going to really slow the pace in the third and fourth quarter. So we'll see. But I'm hoping 31-23 Packers. Lord Uther, who do you got in the Bears game? You said you sticking with the Vikings over the Bears?
Oh yeah. I
Anything change
think
your
when I
mind?
say did I say 28-21? I think I
Something
said
like that.
Vikings.
Yeah.
I think the Packers win 35. Where'd I go? Oh, I had it in my head. 35-27. I don't know why I picked 35, and I don't know why I picked 27. Actually, I think the. So wait. Here's my question. Gold Rush. When do you tear the whole thing down and rebuild? Because your guys are old, except for Purdy, right? Everyone else is old or
Right.
injury prone. So what do we do?
I think to something that Urza Master was talking about earlier with the rise of Detroit. I think you can say this a lot in professional sports. College is slightly different game because you are constantly recruiting, and now you have the transfer portals, and college has become a completely unshakable landscape, and you can't even figure out what's what. But in pros, it's much easier, and I think you've mentioned this too, Uther. It's easier to conquer something than it is to hold it. And I think we've seen a lot in the NFL of these like teams that seemingly out of nowhere become like rapid fire successes almost overnight. You know, Detroit the last year and a half, the Commanders this season. A couple of years ago it was the Jaguars. A couple of years before that it was the Carolina Panthers, you know, with Cam Newton. Like it's easy to be ascendant. It's easy when you have a team that previously wasn't doing very well and they have sort of a lighter schedule because the NFL schedule makers try to make it so that you're not constantly behind the eight ball in terms of that. And then suddenly you just get the right click of head coach and players and draft picks and free agency. It's a lot easier to be ascendant. What's harder is when you have a consistent winning philosophy, you know, and I guess the Patriots would be your one outlier during the Belichick Brady years. But I mean, the Eagles have gone through it. You know, they start out last year 9-1 and finish, you know, 9-7 or whatever they did. They you know, losing 6 or 7 in a row. The Niners are going through it now at 5-5 when a team that was picked, you know, to go right back to the Super Bowl. You know, maintenance is hard, and you've got injuries, as you say. You've got people just aging out. You've got coaches that get, you know, I'm going to hire this guy's coordinator. So we're on our fourth coordinator in 4 years. I mean, not because he wasn't doing a good job. It's because the other teams are like, oh, he'd be a great head coach. So I think this current dynamic of the Niners, you know, if they underperform this season as they have to date, I don't know. Maybe you can run it back one more time next season. Brock Purdy is due for a big extension, but you know, if you're just basing it on this season alone and not his overall body of work, I don't know that you're going to want to give him the Dak Prescott deal, you know, yet. I mean, yeah, has he blown away all expectations of Mr. Irrelevant? Yes. But is that, again, is that the guy? Is this just Kirk Cousins 2.0, the guy who, you know, maybe looks good, but when you really look under the hood, is he going to, you know, get you that? You never asked that with Joe Montana, right? Steve Young, as much as I loved him, Hall of Fame quarterback, won a lot of games. I mean, he still only had the one trophy under. And there have been a lot of quarterbacks on that sideline that Jeff Garcia, Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick. I mean, there have been talented signal callers or even talented game managers, Jimmy Garoppolo. But they ultimately haven't been able to deliver what the faithful by the Bay have been clamoring for, which is that 6th Lombardi trophy. And do I believe in Brock Purdy based on his start? Absolutely. But he's going to have to do better than he did last week. Whether he had a shoulder injury at that point or not, it's kind of irrelevant. But, he's got to get that first down with 4 minutes to go. He's got to force Seattle to call timeouts and run the play. And then after he gets that first down, so now the play clock's at 2 minutes and 10 seconds, he's got to go get another one and finish that game. And he didn't do that, right? For whatever reason, he didn't do that. And that's, that to me, I know it's the NFL. I know that players can't be perfect 100% of the time. Michael Jordan missed plenty of shots in his long and illustrious career, but you got to do that as a guy you want to pay a lot of money to. You got to go get that first down, and he didn't. And so that was the disappointing part of last week. So, yeah, I think this window closes with a hard snap. At maybe by the end of next season, if they like I say, if this one turns out to be a wash. So, and then you got to just do what the Lions did, or, what we hope that the Bears and so forth, what the Packers are doing now. You have to have a renaissance with next man up.
That's the hope. All right, gentlemen. Well, we have one game of the week.
Oh, go ahead. Keep going. Sorry. My bad. I have a segment for us once we're done with the game of the week. I just came up with it. Keep going. Keep going.
Ooh, I like it. A new segment here today on Cut the Cheese.
Yes.
Roast the Niner.
Yeah.
Game of the week. Excuse me. WEAK game of the week. We're going to throw out the Buccaneers at the Giants this week. Who y'all got on that one?
Yee. Well, Tommy
Right?
DeVito.
I think we could cut it there. Yee. Nobody wants to watch that.
No, but I mean, we remember the flash in the pan that Mr. DeVito was last season, and he had the crazy agent, and it was this whole Goomba, New Jersey like thing going. But is he a decent NFL football player? I mean, that's going to be the question there. The Giants, they're just like their counterparts that they share a stadium with. They don't seem to have the right mix. I think Brian Dable's probably a dead coach walking. They're going to have to, they've lost Saquon Barkley to a division rival, and he's doing just fine as an Eagle. The Commanders are clearly right now, overachieving, but also playing well. Dallas has really taken a step back, as you can see. And that's probably frustrating for like Giants fans when you see that traditionally tough division rivals are taking a step back and you can't capitalize on that. And at least play competent 500 football. So, Tampa in this one, I think that's just, I don't think the Giants, they're playing for next year, but it's more than just you'll start off fresh in training camp. They need something. They need a whole new whiteboard. They've got to tear out the struts and do it. That's a franchise in a big market with a lot of passionate fans. That's just, it's the worst thing. I think Uther says apathy, where people are just like, I'm not going to go to the games. I'm not going to watch them on Sunday. I'm not going to have the people over for a tailgate. Like, forget it. I don't care. Call me when they do something. And maybe Tommy DeVito today gives them that little brief spark at home, but
I love that guy's agent.
Yes, he is amazing. By the way, I love when I am quoted multiple times throughout a podcast. Yeah. But look, though I would like to, sit down and have some gabagool and watch DeVito just totally win this game for my Italian brethren, I want Baker Mayfield to get the dubs because I have become a Baker Mayfield fan. I'm a believer in Baker, so I'm hoping that the Bucks pull this one out. I hope that guy gets a Super Bowl at some point because Cleveland totally did him wrong, completely, and that would just be some great comeuppance.
I'm split because I really like Tommy DeVito. I'm a sucker for those Italian backup quarterbacks. I was a Vinny Testaverde guy. I want to see him win. I want to see him win big too. Like, I love Baker. Don't get me wrong. And, I work with a lot of folks out of Tampa who are Bucks fans, and Battle of the Bays was always one of my favorite games, but I want to see the Giants win today. I got to admit, like, they should lose. They should go for that draft pick, but I want to see Tommy DeVito throw 5 touchdowns. I'm not going to lie. I want to see him have, like, a huge game, and I want to see his, like, suit and, like, hat with, I hope there's a feather in it on his agent on the sideline with an obnoxiously large cell phone, making calls. Where's the friggin' gabagool? There's no gabagool on the sidelines. I want this guy to have like a banner freaking day. And I don't want the rest of the team to have a good game. Like, I want him to have like all of the stats, and the rest of the Giants suck. It would be funny to watch. I will say I like the toilet bowl games. Like, I'm looking at what am I going to watch? I'm going to watch the Vikings and Bears, but I'll probably flip back and forth to the Bucks game and the Giants game just to see, how they doing? How they doing over there? Because the Lions game I could give a crap about. Like, the Colts are gonna lose at home to the Lions. It's just, if the Colts somehow beat the Lions, I'll be a happy man. But come on, that's not much of a matchup. As a matter of fact, most of the other matchups this week are terrible. Titans at the Texans, Cowboys at the Commanders, like Chiefs at the Panthers. Cardinals Seahawks might be a good match. Of course, that's during the 49 Packers game. Broncos at the Raiders. It's a classic matchup, but it's not really anything great this year.
Eagles Rams.
Eagles at Rams might be a good game for the Sunday night game. I'll probably watch it, but even like Ravens Chargers tomorrow, I'm not gonna watch that. Like, that's not a great Monday Night Football matchup. Who am I kidding? I'm gonna watch it because it's football and it's on TV. But NFL fans, if you enjoy watching these games, you're going to enjoy Lord Uther's next segment because he's come up with some gold on Gold Rush's day. Let's hear it, Lord Uther.
Okay, we're going to make this the 45-second drill that we'll be posting on our reels. This is going to be yes or no from the two of you. I don't want to hear anything else but yes or no. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you're just going to give me yes or no. That's it. Urza Master, you're going to go first. Gold Rush, you're going to go next. So, in order to start this off on a real property, here we are. Urza Master, give me 45 seconds on the clock. Let me know when you're ready. Let me know when you're ready. Okay, 45-second drill here on our podcast. Urza Master first, Gold Rush next. Bill Belichick returns to the NFL. Yes or no?
No.
Bill Belichick keeps his Instagram girlfriend. Yes or no?
No.
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers gets traded.
No.
No.
49ers make the playoffs.
Yes.
Yes.
Kansas City wins the Super Bowl.
No.
No.
Keenan Allen gets traded or waived.
Yes.
Quick.
Yes. Yes.
Deion goes to the NFL.
Yes.
Yes.
Packers make the NFC Championship.
Yes.
No.
Bears finish 500.
No.
No. No. No. God.
And there we are. We're out.
All right. All right. And with that, NFL fans, if you want to follow all the action with us here on Cut the Cheese, Poke the Bear, Roast the Niner, click that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the follow button. I already said subscribe, didn't I? Drop us a comment on which you want it to be. Subscribe or follow. Either way is fine with me. Are you ready for more football? Because, frankly, I think we are.